So here we are on Grand Cayman in the Caribbean, where we met with several islanders and some British expats who certainly liked to party and were excited about the film festival. Excuse for another party, I think. We also met with the woman who ran the National Trust, Teresa Leacock, who'd said the possibility of a festival had been mentioned, but she didn't know too much about it. A couple of us were interviewed on the local radio station, and again the festival seemed to be news to the broadcaster. Then we were supposed to meet with a person who was an integral part of securing theatres for showing the films, but she wasn't on the island and therefore unavailable to talk to us and discuss facilities and so forth. Big breakdown in communication there, it seems. Nevertheless, even though Betsy, Terry and I had major doubts, Max was insisting that everything was going to be all right. So we acted as if, and in cooperation with the National Trust lady, devised a plan which we thought might just work. I suggested the festival's main focus be on young filmmakers who'd produced short films with a view to making a feature length. If sponsors could be matched with these up-and-coming filmmakers whose short films they liked, they could then support them in producing their next feature. Of course, there was no guarantee that the sponsor would recoup his money, but there was a very real chance that there might be a Steven Spielberg amongst the filmmakers, which naturally could pay big dividends. I also suggested that there be film workshops for young people on Grand Cayman, and they could make a short film perhaps about island life and the importance of counting parrots, which might seem funny, but these parrots were at risk of population decline. We also spoke about donating funds from the festival to the National Trust to enhance the island. But how were we going to draw an audience to Grand Cayman unless there was some other charity involved? I suggested donating a portion of the income from the festival to an existing and high-profile AIDS organisation, since AIDS was affecting people all over the world. Plus, the cause attracted personalities. In addition, we could also take advantage of the AIDS organisation's publicity machine and their mailing list. Well, yeah, we're all full of ideas. Financial prizes for best film, honouring a big star with a special award. I later contacted the reps for Sidney Poitier and Sir Richard Attenborough in this regard. Then there'd be gala events, and so on and so on. As I said, us three women were going ahead as if the film festival was taking place. We were determined to gather as much information as possible and make reliable connections on the Cayman Islands who could maybe make it happen. As it turns out, though, there weren't too many people willing to commit, and especially when it came to financing, which surely was why we were there. Once again, our leader Max assured us that money would not be a problem and that it was definitely forthcoming. Well, we also needed films to entertain the public, and I told Max it was essential I attend the Sundance Film Festival in Park City, Utah, so that I could review possible films to be shown at the Cayman Islands Film Festival. He agreed and did actually pay for a 10-day pass for me to screen films. However, he asked if I could take care of the airfare and he'd reimburse me. Well, I had no reason to believe he wouldn't. But I'm sure you're already seeing a red flag. Fortunately, a very good friend of mine, Claudia, lived in Salt Lake City, so I was able to stay with her and didn't have to incur hotel costs. I did have to hire a car, though, since Salt Lake City was over 30 miles away from Park City, the hub of the Sundance Film Festival. Anyway, after a few days enjoying the hot sun of the beautiful Cayman Islands, within a few weeks I was facing the cold snow and ice of Utah. I'd been to several film festivals over the years, including the Toronto Film Festival, but I'd never attended Sundance. the most prestigious festival in the US, and of course known for Robert Redford's involvement. Members of his company Wildwood founded the festival and named it after Redford's character in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Redford was the Sundance Kid. Then Redford established the Sundance Institute to help emerging filmmakers hone their craft, and it's a highly sought-after ticket. It was a very hectic 10 days at Sundance, and I saw over 40 films, features and shorts, as well as attended talks and panel discussions. Then there were the parties, another highly sought-after ticket. I bumped into people I knew, which was a nice surprise, but I was mainly concentrating on connecting with as many producers and film distributors as I could, spreading the word about the intended Cayman Islands Film Festival. It was pretty full on, but my adrenaline was pumping, and I was excited about my mission to find suitable films, albeit quite challenging. Max had given me specific instructions that they should be in keeping with the values of the Caymans, i.e. clean, meaning no sex or violence, and not too controversial. In keeping with the Caymans, I thought. Really? Anyway, my quest was almost impossible. Isn't it the point of films to make us think and to engender a feeling, to make us uncomfortable at times? This was actually further pointed out to me by Lee Tamahori, the New Zealand director of Once Were Warriors. I'd been watching this film about a very dysfunctional Maori family and was particularly disturbed by the effect the violence in the family had on the children. A scene where the boy and girl hide in a cupboard as soon as they hear the raised voices of their parents as they begin to fight upset me, struck a nerve. As a child, probably around 8 years old, I often heard the raised voices of my parents after they came home from the pub, and I would whisper to myself, "Please don't let them fight." I was so disturbed by the film that I walked out, went into the ladies' room and cried. When I came out, a man was standing in the lobby of this beautiful Egyptian theatre and asked me why I'd left the film. "It's too violent," I responded. "It's really upset me. I can't watch anymore." He introduced himself as the director of the film, Lee Tamahori. And instead of being offended that I didn't want to see the film, he said, "That's what a film should do. The story, the characters, they need to provoke a feeling. If not, what's the point?" He didn't know why I'd been so affected by his film, but what he said made absolute sense to me. Regardless of whether we personally identify with the story and characters of a film, more than anything, it's important that we're affected by what we've witnessed, that we've learned something, not only about the characters on the screen and the situations they find themselves in, but how we respond. It might be that at the end of a film you leave the theatre, step away from your TV or other device and say, "Okay, what's to eat?" with no comment other than, "That was good," or "What a load of rubbish." But I guarantee that somewhere in the deep recesses of your mind, something has registered from watching the film. On a superficial level, it could be the music, a style of dress or hair, design. But then there are deeper psychological impressions that you may be unaware of, and yet will surface at some point in the future. Everything we see and hear in life has an impact on our inner computer, whether fleeting or not. When I returned to LA, I wrote reviews of all the films I'd seen at Sundance and highlighted those which I considered appropriate for showing in the Cayman Islands, Obviously, Once Were Warriors was not one of them. I submitted the list to Max along with my bill for airfare, car rental, and other expenses, and was prepared to continue forging ahead. Since it was now the middle of January and the film festival was scheduled for April of the same year, I had serious doubts that it was going to happen at all. Then when Max was unable to reimburse me for my Sundance expenses, the writing was on the wall. I'm sure it's no surprise to hear that the Cayman Islands Film Festival never took place, although some bright person managed to do it 20 years later. But it was definitely not the very vague Max. All I can say about this experience is that it was exactly that, another life experience where I was able to go to the Cayman Islands and the Sundance Film Festival and meet some extraordinary people who are creative and inspiring, and so much more. But now it's time to look for work that paid. I was taking an acting class on a Saturday morning with Stefan Rudnicki, who was a producer and director as well as an actor and acting coach. At the end of one of his classes, I said, "I'm looking for work, Stefan, so, if you hear of anything that might suit me." Before I'd even finished the sentence, he said, "Well, as it happens, I'm looking to hire an abridger and producer of books on tape if you're interested." Next time, my new career with its own set of interesting challenges. If you're enjoying my episodes, my social media guru, Horatio, has asked that you please like the recordings, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified when I post my next episode on Sunday. Many thanks, and your support is greatly appreciated.